Oh,
I will write myself up. We just had to be in the theme.
okay, duh.
It's Purim. We're talking about living in an upside down world. We're just making sure that all of you know that you're in the right place for tonight, okay? Now I
How
have
do
to
you
figure out
do
how to
that?
undo this because yes. Okay. Yeah? Am I in the right place? Amazing. Okay, I'm Ariella Morkowitz, the founding director of SVIVAH. There are beautiful new faces here today, so thank you. I'm so glad you found your way here. Please stay till the end to introduce yourself. I would love to meet you, and I promise not to run off. 30 seconds about SVIVAH. SVIVAH is all about putting women at the center, discovering and exploring the unique and beautiful Torah that comes from our lived experience. Our goal is always to learn with and from each other and to do all of this within a community of care. We define both Jewish and women very broadly. If you want to be with us, we want you with us and welcome. We love that we are multi-generational and diverse in backgrounds and affiliations, and we come together in celebration and support of women, our strengths, our unique perspectives, and our ways of impacting the world. I feel like Purim is SVIVAH's holiday, and it is such a pleasure to be together with all of you celebrating it-ish tonight. Jordan Rosinski, SVIVAH's Director of Community, and also Rabbanit Aliza Davis, who just popped in. I saw our Director of Pastoral Education for your insight and wisdom in shaping the conversation tonight. Thank you to the Aviv and Covenant Foundations for believing in the beautiful ways that we come together to learn with and from each other. I'm going to say, if you might be interested in sponsoring an upcoming program in honor or memory of someone dear to you, please reach out anytime because we really love learning about the people who are important to you, and we are so grateful when you share them with us. I chose to sponsor tonight's gathering in honor of two of my favorite Esthers. My grandmother of blessed memory and my daughter are both Esthers. They are both fiery, fabulous queens of my life. One survived Auschwitz and the other one is surviving high school. Not to equate the two, but they are both spectacular humans who shape who I am. And both of them are models of quiet leadership and Jewish pride. Speaking of Esther, in past years, SVIVAH has spent a lot of time focused on Esther and her role in the Purim story, her strategic use of power, her imposter syndrome, the gender-based harm that is built into the story and her situation. I'm going to put a link into the chat to some of the other beautiful Purim gatherings that we've had in the past, but I wanted to note one thing before I pass the mic off to Aliza. In the end of the Megillah, in the final chapters of the Book of Esther, there's this meta moment where the Book of Esther talks about Esther writing all of this down. So it's like writing down what we're reading. And the text says, Hayamim ha'ela nizkarim na'asim b'chol dor v'dor mishpacha u'mishpacha medina u'medina ir va'ir. These days are remembered and observed in every generation, by every family, every state, and every city, talking about how you celebrate the Purim holiday and honor the Purim holiday in the future. And the text continues, these days of Purim shall never cease among the Jews, and the memory of them will never end among their descendants. This holiday was intended to stay. It's like Esther knew that we would be doing exactly this tonight. She was giving us this gift. She said, here, take this story. I wrote it down for you, all the details that I lived through, and I want you to revisit it every single year because each year you're going to learn something from it. Something is going to stand out more prominently for you each year. There's going to be a gem in here that you are going to need. This story is important, she's telling us, important enough to make sure that it's a story that gets remembered in detail each year by each generation, in each family, by every Jew around the globe. We have learned a lot from Esther each year together, and I am so grateful to be together tonight to see what gems Esther wanted each of us to take away this year. I'm going to say Boker Tov, good morning, to Rabbanit Aliza Sperling, SVIVAH's Director of Education, who is wonderful and amazing and willing to be up and teaching us from Jerusalem at 3 a.m. tonight. Thank you, Aliza, for the beautiful ways that you teach us to find what we need in our Torah texts so that the Torah becomes what strengthens us, nourishes us, guides us, and holds us. Thank you for this beautiful Torah tonight. I know we're all in for something very special.
Thank you so much, Ariella. It's so nice to be with everybody here tonight. I mean,
Yeah, I guess it's tonight for you as well. Um, I if I do not know how to speak English or Hebrew or any language, it's because it is 3:11 for me a.m. But I'm really, really happy to be here with you. And thank you, Ariella, for really being the heart and soul of SVIVAH, for everything that you do, to Jordan for making tonight possible, to Dahlia for all of your direction and thoughtfulness, and of course to Julie and Shira, our wonderful teachers tonight. We are going to start tonight. Before we get into the content, I want to invite anyone who would like to put in the chat a kavana, an intention for tonight. So, if you would like our learning together tonight to be in the merit of somebody, in the memory of someone, um, for any sort of good thing or good feeling that you want to bring into the world, I invite you to please write it down in the chat. And I also want to thank Ariella for sponsoring tonight in memory of the two Esthers, the first Esther and in honor of the second Esther. Thank you. And maybe in memory of the original Esther as well. Thank you. Yes, so our learning should be in the merit of the people of Iran. Um, Louise, your father, of blessed memory. Peace, Judith, your mother, of blessed memory. Nan, praying for the safety of all of Israel, including my son in Tel Aviv. Yes, I wonder how many Esthers we actually have tonight in our gathering. Yes, for the ability for everyone of any and every denomination to be able to pray together at the Kotel. Tish, in memory of your grandson, of blessed memory. Nancy, healing for Carol and Barbara. Um, Tuvia Melech, I'm just seeing uh, I'm seeing a lot of things pop up. Katie, for the health of your aunt. Honoring a dear friend, Gayla. Julie, in honor of the families in Minnesota, finding their way back to wholeness and everywhere. Susan, for the healing of the surviving hostages. It's really heartbreaking to read what they have gone through. Yael, wow, your grandmother was an Esther, whose birthday would have been last week. Deborah, for all of the nation of Israel, and even for those of us who have not put your kavanot, your intentions, in the chat, and I see some more coming in. Samantha for wholeness, Yudit in honor and health of Sophie. Yes, Sophie, who just had a baby today. Mazal tov to Sophie. Um, may our learning together bring health and hope and goodness into the world. Every little bit, I think, counts. And tonight we are coming together to bring goodness into the world. So our learning to get together tonight should be a way of infusing goodness into this world. And thank you. Um, Tonight we are going to talk about the Book of Esther. And at the very end of the Book of Esther, it tells us that everything changed. V'nahafochu, everything was upside down. What had looked to be the world in front of us and the way the world always works turns upside down. So Haman had tried to kill us, and to kill Mordecai and to kill us, and instead Mordecai becomes elevated to a viceroy, and Haman is hanged on the gallows, and the Jewish people become elevated. There are all these different ways in which what seemed to be the case to the people of Shushan, to all the world, just got changed. Everything turned upside down. And I remember this concept of things being upside down is really interesting to me. I remember once reading a book by Rabbi David Aaron, And he said that one day he decided that instead of walking around the neighborhood just looking ahead, he decided that he would shift his perspective and he would just look up the whole time. So, yes, he bumped into a lot of things that day, but he saw a world that looked completely different, right? Switching your perspective and looking at things from a different way just changes everything that you see. And when you live in a world that's upside down, it's very tempting to think that this is the way the world actually works. And we are very grateful. Ariella told us that the Book of Esther was written down so that we would use it. And I think one of the ways that we use it is it gives us glasses to put on to look at the world. That is to say, that the way that the world presents itself to us is not the way that it has to be. And you can put on the Book of Esther glasses and you can look at the world and you can say, wow, this world is really upside down, but it's not the way that hopefully it will be at the end of the story, and it's not the way that I have to look at the world. I don't have to agree that the way the world is the correct way or the only way that it can be. And I want to share with you a text that has in the Talmud that also talks about this. So I'm going to share my document. Um, Okay, so the first text that I gave you is from the Book of Esther, which is the source that says V'nahafochu. Now, in the 12th month, this is at the end of the story, which is the month of Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put in execution. In other words, the king had said that on the 13th of Adar, all the Jews would be killed. In the day, oh, it explains for us, in the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have rule over them, V'nahafochu, everything became upside down. It was turned to the contrary, that the Jews had rule over them that hated them. And the Megillah goes forward and talks about the ways in which everything was turned upside down. And tonight we are going to explore what to do when you live in a world like we all do, unfortunately, that is upside down. That I wake up in the morning and I think to myself, um, um, is there going to be an attack today? Like, do I need to clear out my mamad, my safe room a little bit more, or to think about where we should go? Should I worry about taking a trip later on this month? And some of you worry about what is going to happen to my neighbors or to myself if I walk out the door or I go someplace. Um, what is going to happen to my country? Um, what is going to happen in my personal life? You may be dealing with personal issues that feel like totally upside down. How did my world come to look like this? This cannot be the way that it should be. And so tonight, I'm so grateful that we are going to talk about living in a world that's upside down and reflecting on it from the Book of Esther and also from Mussar. See that my time is basically already up, but I just wanted to add one more text. This is from the Talmud in Bava Batra 10b. And we'll start here about an incident involving Yosef, the son of Rabbi Yehoshua, who became ill and fainted. I'm not sure, I don't think they knew exactly what was happening to people when they became ill and fainted. This might be a description of like a near-death experience. I'm not sure. Because when he comes to, when he's revived, his father says to him, what did you see when you were not conscious? Right? We always want to know, like, what did people see when they had these near-death experiences? And Yosef said to him, I saw an inverted world, olam hafuch ra'iti. I saw a world that was upside down. Those above, those who are considered important in this world, were below in our world, right, insignificant. While those below, those in our world, those who are insignificant in this world, were above. In other words, he saw a different world when he shifted his perspective to the world to come. And he saw that the people who are in power, the people who are respected in this world, are not so in the world to come. And the people who are not respected, but doing the work and trying to stand up for their values in this world at this point might not be as respected and honored and valued, but in the world to come they are. Rabbi Yeshua said to him, "You have seen a clear world," right? And the unseen explanation says, "The world you have seen is the true world, one in which one's spiritual and moral standing determines their true importance." And then Rabbi Yeshua wants to know from his son, and how did you see us, right? Those of us, the Torah scholars, right? Because that's the group that he's in. But I would add those of us who believe in right and wrong, those of us who are working so hard for justice and for peace and for a world that is improved, were we also what was our status in that world to come? And Yosef said to him, "Just as we are important here, we are important there." And I love this text, and I love thinking about it in terms of Purim and also thinking about it in the world to come. Sorry, I was thinking about it in the Book of Esther. I'm going to have lots of slips tonight because I'm not quite awake 100%. Um, so I am also upside down. But what happens, I think, in the Book of Esther and this story of I've seen a world upside down reminds us that just because things look a certain way, or the newspaper frames things a certain way, or people in power frame things in certain way, we know that that is not the world as it is and as it is supposed to be. And it gives us, as Julie's going to talk about, Ometz Lev, courage of the heart, or strength of the heart to move forward. So it is really my pleasure to introduce our teachers tonight. We are going to start with Shira Schiowitz, and you can see her bio in the chat. Shira has been with us at SVIVAH before. She teaches Tanakh and Jewish identity at SAR High School in Riverdale, New York, where she serves as co-director of professional development and mentors new teachers. And you can see the rest of her bio. Shira, thank you so much for being with us.
Okay, thank you so much, Elisa and Ariella and Jordan and everyone who's here and Julie. I already feel just so much more present and like ready for Purim, just being in this space. So thank you. Okay, so following Elisa's introduction, there's no better text, I think, in the Bible to get us into a world of chaos than the Book of Esther. And I actually find a certain comfort, just in like, they say, it says in Kohelet, nothing is new under the sun. And, you read the Book of Esther, and yes, nothing is new under the sun. We being in a world of chaos is not something that we have not experienced before in our history. So I'm going to screen share with you and bring up some of I would say, the more chaotic features of the Book of Esther. Um, so here's some of the just major things that jumped out at me when I was thinking about it. Um, First thing is that at the beginning, Ahasuerus, when we meet the king in chapter 1, it's kind of he's a monarch and he's in charge, but it's a little bit of a democratic system. He has a whole group of advisors that he consults with. He listens to different opinions. But by the time we get to chapter 3, chapter 4, we've moved into a total dictatorship. Another big shift into this world of chaos is Jews seem to live with relative freedom. And ultimately, by the time we get again to chapter 3, there's a decree. Haman comes up with this decree to annihilate the Jews, and it happens very quickly. Um, the third aspect I noticed is that decisions are random, like meaning the day when Haman suggests that they kill the Jews, when they decide on the day, they choose it based on a lottery, meaning there's no rhyme or reason how things happen. Also, events
Perfect.
happen by the right person being in the right place at the right time. And even the good things that happen in Megillat Esther in the Book of Esther, like when things start to turn up in about chapter 6, it all seems to happen because Haman happens to come upon King Ahasuerus on the night that he can't sleep and enters his palace. also feeling very random. And especially this is a very strange book for a book that ended up being canonized in the Bible. There's so many reasons why, but the first thing is that God is not mentioned at all in the Book of Esther, right? And there's many other things that make it a strange biblical book, but it is the whole fact that it made it into the canon is a fascinating topic. Um, but one of the biggest reasons that for it to be in theory excluded was that where is God? We come into a world, the world is totally chaotic, right? The Jews are in danger. There's a crazy, kind of fascist kind of government running things. Decisions feel random, and God is not in the picture. It doesn't follow the usual script of when we look at books in the Bible. So I want to hone in a little bit about what it meant to be in this world of chaos, what it meant, I think, specifically also for a woman in this world of chaos, and what are some ways that people dealt with it. And we're going to specifically focus in on Esther. So I'd like to show you a few texts in the Book of Esther that I think bring out this point and perhaps can give us a little bit of direction. Okay, so firstly, this is the first time we meet Esther. This is in chapter 2, and we find out that the king has decided in chapter 1, Achashverosh has decided to kill his wife Vashti. And in place of Vashti, he is going to find a new queen. Now, how does he find a new queen? Well, it's kind of this mandatory beauty pageant where women are taken. The king will take all of them. And after spending a night with each one, he will decide who he wants. So I want to just read for a minute the text here. So, because I think the text really the author goes out of their way to emphasize the real victimization of people and of women in this world, this upside down world. So it begins. One thing to note, by the way, and I highlighted these words, are that everything is, the victims are always spoken about in the passive way. The passive form is used an inordinate amount in these verses. So it starts out, and it happened when the king's word and his rule were heard, meaning the proclamation went out. And then it says, this is in the first verse, 8, Ubihi kabet na'arot rabot el Shushan habira. Many young women were gathered into Shushan, and specifically then, Batil kach Esther el Beit Hamelech. Esther was taken into the king's house. Now, this word, I want to just note that this word of gathering, bihi kabetz, is usually used for gathering wheat. And all of a sudden, what's being gathered are the women. They have no choice. And Esther, Batil kach Esther, she doesn't go, she is taken. And she ends up in the king's palace. Um, Esther also, it's interesting that things turn for Esther very sort of quick. We have a sense that she's somehow in a better place than we might have thought, which is the next verse where it says, "Vatisach chesed lefanav," that somehow this young woman was pleasing. She was pleasing to the person who was guarding her. Ultimately, she was pleasing in the eyes of the king. She won their favor. They brought her things. But I just want to note here, even though Esther is pleasing to them, this is not really like a victory. Like she is a victim, and somehow from her beauty, from her grace, she finds favor in the eyes of those who see her, but there's no autonomy here. She's subject to what they want her to do. And in another way, and this is in verse 10, Esther is also subject to Mordechai's decisions. Now, these are not bad decisions. These are protective measures, but there's still very little autonomy in Esther's approach to dealing with being a victim. In the last verse, it says, Lo higida Esther, Esther didn't tell et ama et moladata, ki Mordechai tziva ala shelo tagid. She didn't reveal her people or her kin because Mordechai told her not to tell. So once we get to chapter 2, in this world of chaos, where it's not just about the politics and it's not just about the Jews, but the king decides that he doesn't want this woman anymore, and women are taken like objects. Esther's only saving grace is that somehow she found favor in her kind of very trapped and imprisoned situation. And she does not reveal anything because Mordecai has told her not to reveal. Okay. Now, by the time we get to the next time we meet Esther, it's 4 years later. And I just want to emphasize for a minute, I'm just stopping the share for a minute so I could see faces again. Elisa, I know you're saying when you want to see faces. But by the time we see Esther again, she has spent 4 years in the palace. And those 4 years, we don't know what happened over those years. There's no autonomy. This wasn't a relationship she chose to be in. Her situation is one where she is at the whims of this king, and we just know nothing. We know that Mordecai comes to check up on her to see what happens, but the next piece I want to show you, I think, highlights also just how removed she was from everything that was familiar to her. So I'm going to share again. Just wanted a moment to see people. Here we go. Okay, so here's our next verse. Now we're at chapter 4. Okay, now I want to contrast here. Esther is being taken care of by Mordecai. He is her contact kind of in the outside world. But I think the text here, I highlighted some of the words about knowledge, da'at in Hebrew, also juxtaposes Esther and Mordecai because Mordecai, as someone who's not living in the king's palace, he knows a lot more than her. So Esther is not only a hostage in the king's palace, but she also has no information. Okay, so let's look at this. Mordechai yada et kol asher na'asa. So this is after Haman makes the decree that he's going to wipe out all the Jews. Mordecai knows what's going on because he is part of the community and he, as the Jewish leader, or perhaps a Jewish leader, knows that things are happening. And so he decides to take action. Vayikra Mordechai begadav, he rips his clothing, he puts on sackcloth, he goes to the city, he's crying. And finally, he comes to the palace gate, but he actually can't go in because no one can come into the palace when they're wearing sackcloth. Now, I want to note, so Mordecai knows the situation, and Mordecai is also making a choice to come in sackcloth. He knows that this is a way that he's not going to get in, but this is Mordecai protesting. This is Mordecai saying, this can't go on. The king can't make an arbitrary decree to kill out a whole nation of people. And then, by the way, and it points out in verse 3, by the way, that it's not just Mordecai who knows, but all the Jewish people know. There's only one Jew who doesn't know what's going on. And that Jew, ironically, is the woman who, in theory, might have had some power as the queen, but she doesn't. She's so locked up that she doesn't even know what's going on with her own community. By the way, in verse 3, I bolded that word dot, which actually means rule. But I think it's not coincidental that we're talking about coincidences, but that the word dot, which is so similar to the word da'at, which is knowledge, comes up a lot in Megillat Esther. There's this theme of who knows, who doesn't know, who's on the inside. Now, Esther's maids, in verse 4, Esther's maids, they come, they tell her that Mordecai's here and he's wearing sackcloth, he can't come in. And right away she says, why is he doing that? Our goal is to please the king. She sends him clothing so that he can come inside. And then Esther realizes there's something that she's missing. So she calls to Atach, who is one of the people who serves her, and she sends him to Mordecai. And here comes our word again, lada'at, mazeh v'al mazeh. She wants to know what is happening. So we meet Esther here in a way. Esther is the ultimate outsider. The entire Jewish community is mourning a decree that Esther knows nothing about. So even in her position of wealth, and we might have thought power, there's no power and there's no knowledge. She doesn't know what's going on. Okay, but Mordecai is about to disabuse her of this notion. And here's where chapter 4 picks up. Chapter 4 picks up. Mordecai tells Esther, I left a little bit out, but he tells Esther about this degree. And he says, you are in this place. You are meant to go to the king. You're the one who's going to have the opportunity to save us by intervening with the king. And Esther is afraid, and understandably so. So first, I want to note here. Sorry, stopping the share for a moment again so I could see people. But I want to note here that she's afraid because, first of all, she has to go into the king, and she hasn't been called, and she knows that the rule is that if you're not called by the king, you will be killed. But it's not only that, she's been so isolated. All of a sudden, she hears about what's going on with the Jewish people. Nobody knows that she's a Jew. She's been living in silence. And all of a sudden, here comes this big demand that Mordecai has of her to go and to advocate on behalf of the Jewish people. And he's out there advocating. He wants her to join. But she's spent 4 years as a total victim, hostage in the king's palace, hiding her true identity. What he's asking of her is actually a really big shift. And I just want to say politically, she may have also thought, maybe better for me to stay quiet and there's something more that I can do. We wonder sometimes, right? How out there should be? How much do we protest? When do we try to go along with things to make things work? When do we say, so these are all thoughts that are running through Esther's head. And Mordecai comes to her and Mordecai says something interesting and something strange. And he says, Mordecai said in response to Esther, do not imagine that you of all Jews will escape with your life by being in the king's palace. For if you indeed remain silent in this crisis, relief and deliverance will come for the Jews from another place, while you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether for just a time like this you have attained royalty. And what's so fascinating to me is, first of all, this is a very powerful plea, right? Mordecai says, you're here for a reason. You're in this position. Yes, you are a victim, but even as a victim, there is a moment here where you have an opportunity to do something. And who knows if this is why you're here. And yes, if you may die in the process, but how can you pass up? You need to have your Esther moment. Now, I just want to show you, I highlighted two words here, two groups of words here, because they're so powerful to me. Mordecai doesn't say, this is why you're here, and this is what you need to do, and God is going to save us. He says none of that. Instead, what Mordecai says is, A, if you are silent, salvation will come mima komacher, from another place. Right? That's strange. He should say, I know that God will save us nonetheless. He doesn't mention that. And he also says, who knows if this is why you're here? There's no certainty. And I can't underscore that enough, that when Mordecai tells Esther she has to go in, he doesn't say to her, this is why you're called. I know this is your job. He just says, I don't know if this is why you're here, but maybe. And how can you not act in this situation? And I think he also doesn't mention God. I feel like that's deliberate. I mean, he's saying, I have faith that there's a bigger picture. But he doesn't have, this isn't like the earlier books of the Bible where we have a clear plan and God says this is going to happen for a certain amount of time and then I'm going to come. No, this is total uncertainty, right? The absence of God's name and the total chaos and lack of knowledge is definitive. And I believe that it is put there for us, that this is our world, right? Lots of times life challenges us and we don't know what God's plan is, or we don't know how the story is going to end. And we don't know if this is why we're even put in this spot. I don't have all the, clarity to understand that. But Mordecai's message to Esther is that even in this moment of uncertainty and chaos, it's your responsibility to act. Now, Esther steps into that moment, right? She chooses to step in. And she returns, she says to Mordecai, this is that ending piece. She says, Lech knos et kol hayudim hanimtzeim b'Shushan, gather all the people in Shushan, v'tsumu alai, fast for me, don't eat, don't drink, 3 days, day and night. And she says, I'm also going to join you in that fast. Not just me, but all these women who are serving me, who are surrounding me, we are also going to join you in that fast. And then I'll be willing to come to the king, even when it's against the rules. Now, it's interesting to me that the one request that Esther makes before she steps into this is that she says, and I'm sorry, I should have read those last 3 words. If I perish, I perish. I'm willing to put my life on the line. But before she does that, she wants to feel community. Those years of isolation where she wasn't even following the news, she didn't even know what was going on, right? In October 7th, so to speak, happened, and Esther wasn't even aware that that occurred. Once she's stepping up in this moment, she needs her community behind her. And she needs her community, the broader community, and even her small community, right? These women who are not Jewish women, but she needs a community in order to have the strength to take that next step. And Mordecai right away, Vayavor Mordecai right away goes, and he does exactly what Esther commanded him. So we have the shift now, right? Before, Esther was not sharing her identity because Mordecai commanded her so. And now Esther's the one commanding Mordecai to as she steps into her Jewish identity, that she needs to feel that there is a community around her. Um, and I think as I think about just to kind of close this piece, when I think about the uncertainty here of the Book of Esther, in some ways, this book speaks to me more than any other book in Tanakh because it so mirrors our world. We don't have prophets. We don't have divine declaration of what's going to happen. We don't have any clarity. And yet, the Book of Esther, a book of the diaspora, a book of chaos, a book of uncertainty, is still a book that turns to us and says, there are ways to take the next step forward, right? And those ways to take the next step forward are with courage despite the uncertainty. Julie's going to talk about some small steps, how we get there, and also with community, right? We don't have to go at this alone. Now, by the way, it's interesting because the people, when Mordecai comes, he actually says the people are fasting, right? He came and he said everybody's already fasting, but Esther wants them to do her fast. She wasn't part of that. She was isolated. And having that courage, I think it starts from being able to lean into this, into the community. We don't get clarity from necessarily from being with, we get some clarity from being with community, but we don't get all the answers. But we do get the support. And I think Purim kind of holds both of those, um, holding the uncertainty, recognizing we don't have the answers. We don't know what the ending of each of these stories of chaos are going to be. And at the same time, taking the step forward and leaning into community in order to get there. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Shira. That's so beautiful. Um, we've been talking about Esther and about the ways in which she she could have lived her whole life out in the palace, being a very pampered victim, um, and she makes the choice to kind of move toward more agency. And I guess when we have these stories and they're told to us and we know them and we've been told these stories for so many years, then we just think that it's inevitable that of course she's going to do that. But it's hard. It's really tough to do it. And I guess my question for you is like when she's in that spot, she's in this moment of like not knowing. You've been talking about the difference between knowing and not knowing. And I was wondering if you could reflect for us a little bit more about being in that space of not knowing.
Meaning about for Esther or
For
in general?
Esther, for
For
Esther, yeah.
Esther. Yeah. Yeah. It just, I think like when we put ourselves back there, she, she has no, meaning, first of all, she has no information before that. And all of a sudden, she's been disconnected from the community and she doesn't know what the result will be. Meaning, this could, as she said, kasher avadati avadati, I may die in my efforts to do this. But in that uncertainty, I still know that there's a purpose and there's something that I need to do. But we were talking about the passivity, I was mentioning the passivity before. In that moment, right after Mordecai gives her this kind of this direction, and she steps into it in her own way, the next verse says, "Vatilbash Esther Malchut." Esther wore, in order to prepare herself to go to the king, she wears the clothing of royalty. And I think it's a little bit more than that, just than dressing in royalty. All of a sudden, she owns her own space, right? She knows that she has no control. She's the same woman who was, victimized and stolen and taken into the king's palace. But it gives her that moment, that courage to say, I will figure out what the next thing I need to do is. And what happens after that, I can't plan everything because I don't own that. I can't control. There's a certain degree of leaning into letting go of control. But once she lets go of control, then she's able to really step into all of her power in a way, and all that she has to offer.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I think it's such an interesting idea that, sometimes you think that in order you have to solve something or you have to take the huge step, and sometimes taking those small steps is actually the way forward, which I think leads us into Julie and her teaching. I'm so happy that Julie Dean is with us, and you can find her bio in the chat. Julie is the executive director and founder of Living Mussar. With a background in education, facilitation, and Jewish spiritual leadership, Julie brings decades of experience supporting individuals and communities as they grow through meaningful learning and practice. She is passionate about returning the language, wisdom, and practice of Mussar, which Julie will explain to us. And Julie will explain Mussar to us and then connect some Mussar practices to the Book of Esther and to what it means to live in a world of chaos and not knowing. So, Julie, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It is such a privilege to get to be here with such wonderful teachers and people from all over. And what a joy to see faces that I recognize from many different parts of my life. So I want to invite us all to first just take a pause. In an upside down world, one of the things that I've learned is to first get my bearings. And so I want us to take a moment to get our bearings, and to whatever degree you'd like to participate in this, it is up to you. I'll invite you to either close your eyes or soften your gaze. Closing your eyes might be a little dangerous for some folks at this moment, but just taking a moment to go inward. We're going to practice taking a pause, taking a deep breath wherever you are. And you may wish to bring the phrase Hineni. Hineni, meaning here I am in English. Hineni in Hebrew. Taking several breaths. Here I am. Bringing self-compassion to whatever you are carrying at this moment. What's been occupying your heart, what's occupying your mind, what's occupying your soul. And holding yourself like you would a dear friend. Bringing your attention to your feet, whether they're on the floor or tucked up underneath you. And taking some intentional breaths. Actually connecting with our own agency. Allowing our attention to move from our feet up into our gut, up into our lev, our heart, mind, and our attention up to our face. On your next breath, connecting with your own aliveness. And as we gently open our eyes and come back to our Zoom living room, I'll invite Jordan to please put us on gallery for a moment so we can see each other. And let's zoom in just a little bit. Seeing one another. The privilege of being together in community. And although there may be many miles between us, we're right here, right next to each other. And being together really helps us find our bearings in an upside down world. So thank you, SVIVAH, for bringing us together. Another important piece of the compass to find our bearings in an upside down world that I'm so excited to share with you is this gem from our tradition called Mussar. And in Hebrew, Mussar means instruction. And in modern Hebrew, it also refers to ethics or morals. So I'm just curious, a little show of hands, how many people are familiar with Mussar? And I'm jumping into my gallery to take a peek. Okay, so some people are, and some people are not. Some people may be familiar with it, that it was integrated into their Jewish learning as a point of study, but not necessarily as a study and practice unto itself. And some people may be learning about it for the first time tonight. So in short, Mussar is a Jewish spiritual pathway of cultivating our inner lives, the soul traits, the ethics or midot, the personal qualities that each of us has in different measure, and that shape how we show up in the outer world in our everyday life. So it's a Jewish practice of cultivating the inner life, because we know that it is, first, that is the seat of holiness, and that also it shapes how we move through the world. Now, in this brief time, I'm going to do three things. Number one, I will share with you a brief history of Mussar. And then number two, I will connect it with Esther and with our Purim story. And then the third one is that we will find Esther in ourselves, and we will explore some of our strengths, each of us, some of our strengths to work with fear, to work with the unknown, and how to increase hope. So here we go. I'd like to share my screen, make sure that you can all see. So Mussar can be also understood in some of these contemporary categories: Jewish spiritual growth, Jewish wisdom, mindfulness, personal growth, conscious living, character development, ethics, positive psychology, neuroplasticity, and as I mentioned before, a practice of increasing kedusha or holiness. We could also say increasing goodliness or godliness. So the big question is, what makes Mussar Jewish? A brief history. Roots go all the way back into Torah, into the holiness code, right in the center, Leviticus 19, when God speaks to Moses, saying, "Speak to the whole Israelite community and say to them, you shall be holy, for I, Adonai, am holy." So that led to the whole exploration of, what does this mean to be holy? How do we do that? How do we live our lives in that way? And this led to an entire genre of literature referred to as Mussar literature that was designed to awaken the heart, to refine the soul, and to strengthen a person's ethical conduct. It was not enough to do the mitzvot, but the challenge is, what is the quality of heart that we bring to doing the mitzvot? What is the way we walk through the world, and how do we walk our talk? In the 19th century, this study of Mussar became more of a formalized practice in the yeshivot of Lithuania. The movement was led by Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, who is regarded as the founder of modern Mussar. And tragically, these schools and the students, nearly all of them perished in the Holocaust. And so Mussar was still practiced in traditional learning. It was woven in as an integral part of understanding our texts. However, the idea of it being a formalized practice has recently gotten a real bolster from Alan Marinas of the Mussar Institute, Rabbi Ira Stone of the Center for Contemporary Mussar, a number of other contemporary scholars, and it is now being revitalized as a living practice. So the organization that I'm a part of, Living Mussar, we really focus on welcoming all voices in the Jewish community to the table. And we have a vibrant community here in the Twin Cities, where we have over 20 groups of people studying and practicing Mussar in va'adot, in small groups. There's facilitator training, online workshops, and in-person gatherings. And there seems to be a great interest in bringing this forward. And in our upside down world today, focusing on how we walk our talk is more important I would say more important than ever, but I do think it's always been really important and a critical part of what it means to be a Jew. So now we're going to move to finding Mussar in our story for Purim. And the trait, there's many different midot that each one of us has in different measure. But the trait that I really want to focus on this evening is ometz lev. And in English, we may translate that as courage or heart strength. Now, when you hear the word courage, you might think of Wonder Woman. And each person here has that quality within them of the person who can do the great heroic act. And we heard about Esther and her tremendous courage in the Purim story. If we expand this idea of ometz lev to include heart strength, I want you to start looking at in what ways do you embody heart strength in your own life? In what ways do you see heart strength in the people in your community? Ometz lev, as it says here, it involves choosing to move forward even in the presence of fear, uncertainty, or doubt. As the quote says, courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the decision that something is more important. So when I think of Esther and I think about her courage leading up to her moment of reveal, as well as her moments afterwards of advocacy and protection for the Jewish community, I don't think she was unafraid, but I think rather she moved forward even with her fear. Ometz lev refers to inner moral strength, and it most often is expressed, as I said, not through grand acts of heroism, but through daily acts of resilience and thoughtful responses. So let's take a moment and think about what that may look like in your everyday life. Thinking of someone that you consider courageous or having heart strength. It could be a person with depression who chooses to rise out of bed and face another day. It could be a bullied child standing up for themselves. Perhaps it's someone who's setting healthy and important boundaries or initiating a difficult conversation. Maybe it's the heart strength it takes to reach out for help or to reach out when feeling lonely. Perhaps it's people living in chronic pain, walking through grief, trying something new, risking failure. The courage it takes to talk with someone whose beliefs are really different than yours and to put aside your judgment and listen with compassion, listening with a desire to connect. There's so many different ways to experience ometz lev. Rabbi Simcha Zissel Ziv, who is one of the Mussar masters from the 19th century, he taught that a person must know their strengths just as they must know their weaknesses. This understanding of ourselves in order to work on ourselves with compassion. We must know our strengths just as we must know our weaknesses. That true humility, anava, is not denying our gifts. It's recognizing them as sacred tools entrusted to us, not just for the benefit of ourselves, but truly for the benefit of the whole. So one of the reasons I'm so passionate about helping us call each other into our courage is that it's one of our tools in this upside down world to help us find our path forward. And I've found that people are it's much easier for many people to identify themselves as kind, as friendly, as generous, as patient, than it is to say, I also have heart strength. I also have courage, but each of us does. And it's important for us to not only recognize that in ourselves, but help lift that up in each other. You know, you might have a friend that you can talk with and that they love to talk. Fears, fears, fears. What would it be like to engage in a conversation with our friends, with our loved ones about courage? So in the chat, let's lift each other up right now. Let's start calling forward everyday acts of courage that you are seeing in yourself, that you are finding in your community. What are some expressions of heart strength that can help us expand our understanding of this midah, of this soul trait, to include everyday actions, not just the big heroic splashes that make the front page, but how we're showing up during these times? I'm going to pop into the chat here and take a look and invite us to see each other again. Everyday acts of courage. My daughter going every day to a new school. Hashem is hidden. Accepting others as they are, forgiving people takes heart strength. Using my executive functioning to move some elders to new residences, and also lobbying state legislators. I love that you put those together. Traveling to Israel specifically for the purpose of listening to different narratives. A neighbor who broke her arm, never asking for help, but reaching out to me for assistance. Living with chronic pain for over 30 years. I'm sorry, I may have skipped one, but it's off my screen. A diagnosis, dealing with a challenging diagnosis. My father not giving up and my mother not letting him. Don't just read these, let them penetrate your heart. Look at how much courage is in this community. It's profound. Sharing aspects and truths of oneself instead of masking. Beautiful. Wrestling with professional ethics. Oh, I'm sorry, that one just disappeared. Professional ethics of my job going off the rails. Staying strong despite my challenges. Repairing relationships honestly. Oh, wow, everyone, look at this. This is so moving. I hope we're able to capture these for afterwards. When I dared first to speak to a friend who did not understand the Jewish need for allies. Yeah. My sister doing everything she could to help my father have the trips on his bucket list before he died. Oh, these are incredible. These are all so incredible and moving. What would it be like in this upside down world to initiate more conversations about courage, to help call each other into our courage? That is something that we can actively do, to pursue these kinds of conversations with each other. I'm going to introduce another concept here that's connected with these actions of courage. And that is the concept of a bechira point. Nikudat bechira. It's this moment of choice in all of these things that you listed. And I'm sorry I couldn't read every single one of them right now, but I'm looking so forward to having the list, because in your strength, I find my strength. For many of the moments we listed, there was a moment of choice. Now, we don't always have choices, but there are moments where we can choose. Am I going to go this way, or am I going to go this way? And before I know which direction I'm going, I can pause and interrupt autopilot. Just being able to insert a pause, have a breath like we did at the beginning, and observe, get curious. This is one of my understandings of entering into the unknown. When we have unknown, sometimes there's an opening for us to be curious. And when we're curious, we open the possibility that there may be another response. There's a certain measure of fear that is natural and important, but I can do a pretty good job of increasing my fear unnecessarily. So that's one of my Bechira points, is to pause, to get curious about where I can direct my response to whatever is coming my way, and then ask what other choices are available to me in this moment. Remember, courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision that in this moment, something else is a little more important or a lot more important. And this is where I can draw on some of my other midot, some of my other inner traits to help me, whether it's hope or gratitude or equanimity. So these are 3 pieces that we can take coming out of here today. The idea that each of us can create a moment of pause to interrupt autopilot and to enter into the idea of a Bechira point, a Nikudat Bechira. What are my choices? Sometimes in the upside down world, we don't recognize where our power is. So be curious and then explore what other choices available to me in this next moment. In this next moment, I don't need to know the full outcome, but am I going to respond and react? Am I going to react out of fear, and fear that I don't need an excessive amount? Can I shift my focus and invite in heart strength? So I will close today with this last piece around discovering our courage, taking the courage off, from Psalm 27, Chazak ve'ya'ametz libecha. Be strong and let your heart take courage. We have been given an ometz lev. We have been given heart strength. And then it's upon us to reach in and bring that forth and to help bring it forth in each other. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julie. That was so beautiful. I think, can we get off of screen share?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think that actually, Jordan, I'm going to continue the conversation now, and then maybe we can do the song afterwards. So I'm also going to invite Shira to come in. Thank you. Thank you to both of you for all of your wonderful teaching. And I wrote down a list that I don't think is comprehensive of all the different tools that you gave us in terms of um, being in a world of chaos and a world of not knowing and how to cope with it. I wrote down small steps, community, trying to find agency, uh, strength of the heart, choice points, curiosity. And those are only some of the beautiful pieces of advice that you gave us.
Mm.
I wanted to kind of bring it more personal and ask you if there have been times in your life when you have found yourself in moments of not knowing and what tools you used to try to, I don't know, be curious about it or to move from it or whatever you did in that moment. So I don't know who wants to start.
I'm happy to share. And Shira, I want to hear what you have to say as well. Yeah, that's so present for me living here in Minneapolis, because I have been in such an upside down world in a very dramatic way, in addition to what's been happening in our global world. And bringing it into the everyday, there's so much I don't know, but what helps me is the next step. And in Mussar, we take the very big and make it so small so that it's doable. And the next step is really where my focus is. What's my sphere of influence? There's a whole lot that I can't influence, but I can take my next step. And that could be in the conversation I'm having with someone. It could be in the activism I want to have out in the community. It can be, do I really need to be looking at my phone right now? Or is it time to create a boundary with my intake of news? So there's much I don't know, but what I can control is my next step.
Thank you.
Wow. Okay, I love that. And I think it's so powerful. Um, I'm thinking, when thinking about situations where I have felt a loss of control, my head goes right to parenting. Um, in the sense of that, I guess before I had children, I assumed that things go according to plan if you do certain steps that will get you there. And one of the best lessons that my kids have taught me is a lot of humility, that it often doesn't work that way. And especially now, as a mom of adult children, also who are making their own choices, some of them choices that I made have made, some of them not. I think like the lack of what parenting has taught me is that I don't have control, and that that's okay. And ultimately, I don't want to be controlling other people. The only person I can control is myself. And there's a lot of acceptance, I think, that goes along with that. And that acceptance has also led me to a lot of love without conditions. So that's really been, I think, embracing a lack of control and embracing the humility that comes along with that has also allowed me to, I think, deepen my relationships.
Wow. Oh, thank you. Both of those answers really hit home for me. Um, I think that there's some kind of sometimes there's like a panic in not knowing. And I also want to emphasize something that I should have emphasized before, which is that we are speaking about what it means to be in the middle of a story, and we're talking about the Book of Esther, where everything turns out great at the end, right? Like v'nahafochu, um, everything that we would have wished for happens at the end. And of course, that's not always reality, right? Like one could be in a place of not knowing, and then in the end, it turns out in a way that one does not wish for it to turn out. And I just want to emphasize that in no way are we saying that everything, like we're not thinking about the end point right now in our conversation. We're thinking about the middle point, like what to do in that space. And it reminds me a little bit about, I'm not a great yogi or Pilates person, right? But sometimes when I take these classes, they say like breathe into your left rib. And I think to myself, I don't have the ability to breathe into my left rib. So what I'm saying, and maybe it only makes sense to me because it's 4:15 in the morning, but what I am thinking is that breathe into that space of not knowing, right? It's almost like you want to move away from it. What does it mean to like take a deep breath and give breath to that space of not knowing, regardless of what's going to happen at the end, because we have no control over what's going to happen at the end. But what does it mean to breathe into that space? And I want to ask everybody here, and I see Tish nodding, so I want to know what she's nodding about. But I want to ask everybody here to put into the chat, please, something that you're taking from tonight that you would like to put into practice at some point over, let's say, the next few weeks or months. This is an idea that Julie had that I think is part of Mussar practice. Something that you've learned tonight that you want to apply to your life. And as you are putting that into the chat, I'd like to ask our speakers, our teachers, if you would like to answer that question as well.
Mm. Mm. So I am going forth with heart strength in my community, in my Mussar community. We are gathering all the participants in the community next week for our annual Siyum. So imagine a whole collective in person being able to uplift each other. And so inviting the conversations similar to what we had tonight that elevate through talking about the midot, the inner traits that are helping us at this time, and to give those energy and to share practices with one another. And so it's taking my heart strength to create this event and to go forth and lead this event, knowing and believing that that really makes a difference. It makes a difference for me and for our community, and I believe in the ripple effects from that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I'll share something really small in a way and limited, but I think powerful way to put this in practice. Um, Purim itself is a day of a lot of chaos, right? Like the customs of Purim, the costumes, the food, just the almost like a carnival-like atmosphere. And I personally can sometimes find that overwhelming. So I'm going to try to find my kind of inner calm over the course of that day and also lean in the opportunities to spend time with community, see people, family, people I know, people I don't know, and just enjoy that space and not attempt to control every costume, every kanzi, every kind of all those little details that come along with it. Just be in the space and go with things as they unroll.
Thank you. And I would say, as a new immigrant, there's a lot of not knowing for me. And I think one practice from tonight that I'm going to adopt is curiosity, and instead of fighting it, sometimes just kind of taking it in and seeing myself in it and thinking about, Shira, you spoke about Esther putting on new robes and thinking about different robes that I can put on to deal with the things that come with being a new immigrant. I'm looking at the chat here. Judith, thank you for starting us off. Acknowledging everyday acts of heart strength, remaining calm in all situations, take on the inverted world and not be afraid of the upside downness, gratitude. Um, yes. Before bed, reflect on your heart strength that day. Focus on what choices are available to me that I've been afraid to explore. Patience in the small steps. The idea of bechira, choice. What works in one situation doesn't necessarily work in others, and considering what I might do differently. Small steps and asking for guidance for the next right step. This is very reminiscent of 12-step practice. We don't have to take big actions, just keep taking one small step after another.
Mhm.
Keep taking small steps forward even when the challenges seem overwhelming. Navigating uncertainty is about making choices and moving forward in small ways. We don't have to know the end of the story. Putting energy into choices from heart strength during the places of unknown, rather than energy in trying to control the unknown. Keep trying to live the insight that hope is best expressed through action, right action. Small steps, the Amos Oz teaspoon of water thrown on the conflagration. That I have to trust that things will work out day by day. Thank you, Nan. Thank you, Nan. Control what I can and not worry about the crazy. um, Rabbi David Fine just moved here. Okay, well, we should try to talk to him. Respect and honor my need for rest. Completely new practice for me to make sense. Yes. Thank you. That was so beautiful and so reinforcing of all of our strength. I want to now actually bring us a music video about the Book of Esther. Um, I have to say that I thought there would be more music videos sung by women about Esther and the Book of Esther, and it was really hard for me to find them. So, first of all, I want to thank Yehudit Mazur Shlomi, who sent me this beautiful video. And I also want to say, if you know of Purim videos sung by women, please send them to us. And I want to also say that this is part of why SVIVAH exists because we have to bring women to the center. It's wonderful for men to sing lots of Purim songs and make Purim videos, but we also have to see women. We have to see women writing the Torah, teaching the Torah, and singing the songs. So I am so grateful that we have this beautiful video by someone I hadn't learned of before, Francisca. And it's all about what Shira was talking about, Lech kenos et kol haYehudim. So Esther says, one of the ways in which I will get strength to go forward is Mordechai, go and gather all the Jews, right? And that's really what we're doing tonight. We're gathering all of us together to learn about, but also share heart strength to move forward. Okay, so let's watch this video.
כנוס את כל היהודים הנמצאים בשושן וצומו עליי. לך כנוס את כל היהודים הנמצאים בשושן וצומו עליי. לך כנוס את כל היהודים הנמצאים בשושן וצומו עליי. לך כנוס את כל היהודים הנמצאים בשושן וצומו עליי. ואל תאכלו ואל תשתו 3 ימים, לילה ויום גם אני ונערותיי עצום כן. ואל תאכלו ואל תשתו 3 ימים, לילה ויום גם אני ונערותיי עצום כן. ובכן נבוא אל המלך אשר לא חדל וחש בשושן וצומו עליי. לך כנוס את כל היהודים הנמצאים בשושן וצומו עליי. לך כנוס את כל היהודים הנמצאים בשושן וצומו עליי. לך כנוס את כל היהודים הנמצאים בשושן וצומו עליי. ואל תאכלו ואל תשתו 3 ימים, לילה ויום גם אני ונערותיי עצום כן. ואל תאכלו ואל תשתו 3 ימים, לילה ויום גם אני ונערותיי עצום כן. ובכן נבוא אל המלך אשר לא חדל וחש
Oh my gosh. I feel like I need to collect more fake hair in my life. That was amazing. And like the best earworm. I really am so glad to have that now stuck in my head. That was amazing. Thank you, Aliza. That was so awesome. And a great way to kind of leave us on that note with that powerful, powerful song. I want to say an enormous thank you that doesn't cut it for the Torah that was shared here tonight, Aliza, Shira, and Julie. I really, one of the mitzvot of Purim is to give gifts of nourishment, mishloach manot, to friends and community. And I feel like I am just sitting here with the biggest and fullest basket of sustenance. Thank you so much for these gifts and tools of such nourishment that I'm just so thankful to now have connected with this already powerful story of Purim. I'm just so much gratitude. Thank you so much to each one of you for the different lenses, perspectives. Aliza, that was exactly what you started with. The different perspectives that you brought to this amazing story and text that really are just like so heart opening and such like a way to look inward and also at how we walk through the world. I'm so grateful to you all. Thank you. I want to switch gears for a moment just before doing the traditional all the things and happy Purims. Because I think it's very important for us, especially as SVIVAH, to say this, because this is exactly what we talked about, gathering community around you. But I want to do it a little bit with a little bit of notice, because I want to mention right now survivors of gender-based harm. And I want to ask anyone for whom that is activating to do what you need to do to care for yourself best, because that is what is of utmost importance to us. Okay? I just want to remind all of us that there is so much of this Purim story that brings up the experiences of survivors. And statistically, we know that there are survivors here with us tonight and in any room in which we gather as community, including the rooms where the Megillah is read. Here at SVIVAH, we have spent a lot of time learning the Torah of survivors, one of the most salient aspects of which is that survivor healing is dependent on supportive community, which is one of the most beautiful things that I can think of. The idea that we as community have the ability to be part of someone's healing is something that is gorgeous if we take it on as our job. So the idea that we as community are responsible for the healing of survivors among us, there are many ways that that can take shape, and it should be guided first and foremost by what survivors share that they need. Our wonderful teacher, Dr. Gila Ben-Shemal, has shared a few guidelines with us for Purim in particular, because the Purim story can be activating for survivors. And we wanted to look at how we as a community can help those who need holding. But the one that I just wanted to raise here is the first. If you are going to be in community on Purim, and if you have the ability to do so, I would just love to encourage all of us to take one small act and gently reach out to your community leadership and ask them to make a very simple one-sentence acknowledgement before the reading of the Megillah begins or in an email beforehand. Just, I think that saying, this story may be hard or complicated for those who have experienced or love someone who has experienced gender-based harm. And we want to say that we see you and we support you as your community, that there is just so much healing in simply being seen. And that is one way that we can do some of the work of standing by the survivors amongst us. We're going to add in the chat a link to some of the other Purim programs that we've held in the past. Each one is more beautiful and more powerful than the next. but as a community that cares deeply about the survivors among us and all of us, we just want to say that we love you and we are holding you even in the pieces of gathering and community that are particularly hard. Okay, thank you for letting me do that. I want to just remind everybody, if Mussar was something that opened curiosity for you, I think that for me, there was a lot that was shared both by Shira and by Julie tonight that brought up some of the learning that we've been doing on Mondays in Ogen with Nama Sadan. It's weekly anchoring for a half an hour about cultivating resilience. And it's a lot of introspection and reflection and helping this idea of figuring out how to walk through the world. And Nama's way of teaching is beautiful. So I'd love to encourage anybody who hasn't explored it before to come and try it out, or you can even try it out on our YouTube channel. There are some recordings of her previous teachings there, but it's a lovely way to come together as community once a week on Mondays. We do have a lot more learning coming together for Passover, but we do not want to give anybody heart failure by talking about Pesach before Purim, so I will not do that tonight. I want to encourage anybody who wants to learn more Mussar with Julie to go to livingmussar.org and check out the ways where that might be possible.